All right, today we're going to talk about a piece of technology that is, well, ancient. It's a true digital fossil, but I bet it's on a device that's literally within arm's reach of you right now. We're going under the hood of something called the file allocation table, or what pretty much everyone just calls the FAT file system.
So let's just jump right in. I mean, have you ever really stopped to think about this? You save a file, right? And it just disappears into your computer. Then, a week later, you double-click it and bam! It pops right back up. How in the world does your computer find that one specific needle in a digital haystack made of billions and billions of bits?
Well, the magic behind all that is something called a file system. And honestly, the best way to picture it is to think of it like a digital librarian. It's this invisible, super fast organizer that knows exactly where every little piece of data is stored, how big it is, and most importantly, how to grab it for you in just a split second.
So, here's what we're going to cover. We're going to see exactly how this digital librarian does its job. We'll check out its two most important tools, what we'll call the card catalog and the master map. Then we'll look at how this whole library system had to grow and evolve, and finally, we'll get into why this seemingly ancient system is still a really big deal today.
Okay, first things first. Our digital librarian isn't a solo act. No way. To stop everything from just turning into total chaos, it relies on two crucial, perfectly coordinated parts.
And here they are, our two heroes of file storage. On one hand, you've got the directory entry. Think of this as the library's card catalog. It holds all the basic info for every single file. And on the other hand, you've got the file allocation table, the FAT itself. This is the big one. It's the master map of the entire library showing exactly where every little piece of data lives.
All right, let's break down that first component, the card catalog, or, its official name, the directory entry. This is always the first stop. When you ask for a file, this is the very first place the operating system looks.
And the key here is all about efficiency. I mean, every single file and folder, doesn't matter if it's huge or tiny, gets its own little standardized 32-byte record. It's a super small but really powerful piece of data.
So what exactly is packed into that tiny 32-byte library card? Well, you've got the classic 8-character file name with a 3-character extension, the old 8.3 style. You've got the file's exact size in bytes, some special attributes like read-only or hidden, and a bunch of timestamps. But honestly, the most critical piece of info is that last one, the starting cluster. This tells our librarian the exact shelf where the very first piece of the file can be found.
But wait a minute, what if the file is way too big for just one shelf? Well, that's where our second hero comes into play. A starting point isn't enough. We need a complete map of the whole place. And you guessed it, that map is the file allocation table.
Okay, so before we dive into the map itself, we need to understand what it's actually mapping. See, the storage space on your drive? It's all broken down into these small, manageable chunks called clusters. And for our library analogy, it's simple. Just think of a cluster as one single shelf. That's the smallest unit of space our librarian can actually manage. So here's how it all comes together. Your computer first grabs the file's library card. That's the directory entry, to find the starting shelf. Got it? Then it goes over to the master map, the FAT, and looks up that shelf number. The map basically says, all right, the next piece of this file is over on that shelf way over there. And the computer just follows this chain, hopping from shelf to shelf until the map finally says, whoa, stop, that's it, you've reached the end of the file. And this master map, it's incredibly detailed. It does way more than just link file pieces together. It uses this really simple code to keep track of the status of every single shelf in the entire library. It knows which shelves are totally empty and ready to be used, which ones are part of a file chain, which one marks the end of a file, and even which shelves are, broken and should be avoided.
Now this whole system, it worked great, for a while. But you can probably guess what happened next. Storage drives got bigger, and then they got way bigger. Suddenly, our library was getting seriously crowded, and the librarian desperately needed a much, much bigger map.
So here's the key thing to remember. The basic idea, the core concept, it never changed, but the system had to scale up, big time. That number you see after the word FAT, like 12, 16, or 32, that tells you how many bits are used for each entry on the map. And that number directly controls just how many shelves, or clusters, our librarian can possibly keep track of.
And just look at the jump here. It's kind of wild. FAT12 could handle just over 4,000 clusters. Not bad for its day. Then FAT16 came along and bumped that up to over 65,000. A huge improvement. But then FAT32. It could handle over 67 million clusters. We're talking about the difference between a little local library and like a massive national archive.
So what does all that mean? Well, this massive jump in the number of clusters meant that FAT32 could manage storage partitions all the way up to 2 terabytes. For its time, that was an absolutely enormous leap forward, and it's what kept the FAT system relevant as those much bigger hard drives started to become the new standard.
Okay, so right about now, you're probably thinking, all right, this is some cool history, but we have way more advanced file systems now, right? And you're not wrong, we do. But the story of FAT? Oh, it is not over. Not by a long shot.
I think this quote really just hits the nail on the head. The biggest reason, the number one reason that FAT is still around is its beautiful simplicity and its universal compatibility. Windows, macOS, Linux, you name it. Pretty much every major operating system can read and write to a FAT drive, no questions asked, no special software needed. It really is the universal language of storage.
And this is exactly why it still matters to you and me. That USB stick you have in your bag, it's almost certainly formatted with FAT32. The little SD card in your camera or your phone? Yep, probably FAT32. This simple, super reliable, and yes, ancient file system is still the default for most of the portable storage we all use every single day, for one simple reason. It just works everywhere.
So when you think about it, the FAT system is a pretty brilliant piece of engineering, right? It's a living fossil that connects our shiny new devices to a digital history that stretches back for decades. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other fundamental kind of ancient pieces of tech are we all relying on every single day without even giving them a second thought?